The restaurant business is built on secrets, secret recipes, secret techniques, secret deals made in back rooms over glasses of wine. But the biggest secret in my family's restaurant chain wasn't written in any cookbook. It was the truth about who really created our success. I'm Elena Romano, former executive chef and now ex-COO of Romano's Italian Kitchen, a chain of restaurants my family built from a single neighborhood trattoria into a regional empire. At least that's what the official story says. The truth, like most family stories, is more complicated. It started in my grandmother's kitchen 50 years ago. Nonna Maria didn't just cook food, she created magic. Her tomato sauce was legendary in our Little Italy neighborhood, people lining up around the block just to get a taste. The recipe was her closely guarded secret, passed down from her mother in Naples, or so everyone thought. The reality? Nonna Maria created that sauce recipe herself, experimenting late at night after long days working in other people's restaurants. I know because I was there, perched on a kitchen stool at age 8, watching her add pinches of this and dashes of that, taking careful notes in my little notebook. Remember piccola? She'd say in her thick Italian accent, a recipe is more than ingredients. It's love, it's timing, it's knowing when to follow the rules and when to break them. By the time I was 12, I knew that sauce recipe better than my own name. Nonna Maria made sure of it, teaching me every subtle variation, every seasonal adjustment. My father Thomas, her only son, was too busy with the business side to learn. My brother Marco was more interested in playing restaurant owner than learning to cook. The sauce is the heart of everything, Nonna would tell me. Without it, we're just another Italian restaurant. With it, we're Romano's. She was right. When my father opened the first Romano's Italian Kitchen in 1985, it was Nonna's sauce that made us special. As we expanded to more locations, that sauce remained our signature, our secret weapon. Every batch had to be made by either Nonna Maria or, increasingly as she got older, by me. The business grew rapidly through the 1990s and early 2000s. 5 locations became 10, then 15. My father handled the business expansion, Marco glad-handed with investors, and I ran the kitchens, protecting the quality of our food, especially that sauce. Nonna Maria passed away in 2015, leaving me as the only person who knew the complete recipe. All our other chefs had versions of it, but never the whole thing. Key ingredients were pre-mixed at our commissary kitchen. Certain steps were kept deliberately vague in the manual. It was safer that way, Dad always said. Can't risk our secret getting out. What nobody knew was that Nonna had legally transferred ownership of the recipe to me years before she died. The sauce belongs to the cook, she'd said, making me promise to protect it. I filed the paperwork away, never thinking I'd need it. Then Dad had his heart attack. It was sudden, massive, leaving no time for goodbyes or final instructions. One minute he was complaining about the cost of imported olive oil. The next he was gone. The family was devastated, but business doesn't stop for grief. I thought the succession plan was clear. I'd been effectively running operations for years, maintaining our quality standards while introducing new menu items that kept us current. The customers loved us. Our profits were strong. Our employees stayed forever. Marco handled marketing and public relations, which suited his personality. But I underestimated my brother's ambition and my mother's blindness when it came to her only son. The shareholders' meeting was scheduled for 1 month after Dad's funeral. I spent that time keeping our restaurants running, making sure our customers and employees felt secure despite the change in leadership. Marco spent it lobbying board members and making deals. I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, hushed conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, secretive meetings I wasn't invited to, sympathetic looks from longtime employees. But I was grieving, distracted, still believing in family loyalty. The meeting started normally enough. Standard reports, financial updates, moment of silence for Dad. Then Marco stood up to present his vision for the future. Romano's needs to evolve, he announced, pacing the conference room like he was giving a TED talk. We need to think bigger, expand faster. Push into new markets, streamline operations, maximize profitability. I felt a chill as he outlined his plans. Cheaper ingredients to cut food costs. Simplified menu to reduce kitchen complexity. Pre-made sauces from a commercial manufacturer to ensure consistency. But the sauce, I started to protest. is a relic of the past. Marco cut me off smoothly. Charming family history, but not scalable. Modern restaurants need modern solutions. I looked around the room, seeing heads nodding. Even my mother, who'd practically lived on Nonna's cooking, seemed convinced. Furthermore, Marco continued, this transition requires strong, pragmatic leadership. Someone who can make tough decisions without being emotionally attached to outdated methods. And there it was, the knife sliding between my ribs with surgical precision. The vote was quick, clinical. Marco as CEO, supported by a new executive team of his choosing. My position as COO would be eliminated, replaced by a streamlined management structure. You'll be taken care of course, Marco said afterward, all fraternal concern. A generous severance package, consulting fees. Maybe you could write a cookbook. I sat there, numb, as he outlined my professional funeral. Mother patted my hand, murmuring about how this was for the best, how I could finally have a life outside the restaurants. They didn't understand. The restaurants were my life. That sauce was my heritage, my connection to Nonna Maria, the heart of everything we'd built. I left the meeting in a daze, barely registering the sympathetic glances from employees who'd already heard the news. In my office, I stared at the old photos on the wall. Nonna Maria and me in the original kitchen, Dad cutting the ribbon at our 10th location, family celebrations marked by food and laughter. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco. Need you to transfer all recipes and procedures to new corporate chef by Friday, especially the sauce details. Time to pass the torch. That emoji felt like a slap. He thought he'd won, thought he could just take everything our family had built and turn it into another soulless chain restaurant. He'd forgotten one crucial detail, something Nonna Maria had taught me long ago in that tiny kitchen. Some secrets are worth keeping. Some recipes belong to the cook. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder I hadn't looked at in years. Inside was a document filed with the patent office the year before Nonna died. A legal registration of intellectual property signed by Maria Romano and witnessed by her lawyer. My hands didn't shake as I took a photo of the document and sent it to our family lawyer, Mr. Rossi. His response came within minutes. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Don't sign anything. Don't give anyone any recipes. I looked around my office at the life I'd helped build, the legacy they wanted to erase. Marco thought he was getting everything. He was about to learn that some things can't be bought, sold, or stolen. Even the best sauce needs time to simmer. Mr. Rossi's office hadn't changed in 20 years. Same leather chairs, same photos of Italian landscapes, same faint smell of espresso. But this morning, something was different. Maybe it was the extra people in the room. Along with Mr. Rossi, there was a patent attorney, a restaurant industry consultant, and surprisingly, Tony Martelli, our head of operations who'd been with us since the first location opened. Thank you all for coming, Mr. Rossi began, sliding on his reading glasses. We have an interesting situation here. Interesting was an understatement. Over the next hour, the patent attorney confirmed what Nonna Maria had set up years ago. The sauce recipe wasn't just a family secret. It was a registered trade secret, legally assigned to me. The restaurant chain had been licensing it all this time through a separate company Nonna had created, with me as the sole owner. Your grandmother was quite clever, the patent attorney said, reviewing the documents. She structured this to protect both the recipe and your position in the company. The licensing agreement requires the sauce to be produced under your direct supervision, using your approved methods. Tony cleared his throat. That explains why she always insisted Elena oversee sauce production, even after we grew to 15 locations. The restaurant consultant, a sharp-eyed woman named Sarah Chen, had been studying our financial reports. The sauce isn't just your signature item, she said, looking up. It's the foundation of your entire menu. Marinara, vodka sauce, the special Sunday gravy. They all start with this base. Without it, we're just another Italian chain. I finished echoing Nonna's words from so long ago. Mr. Rossi leaned forward. Marco has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. He's planning to announce his new partnership with national food distributors to supply pre-made sauces to all locations. My stomach turned at the thought of our restaurants serving mass-produced sauce from a factory. Can he do that? Not without breaching the licensing agreement, the patent attorney said, which would allow you to withdraw permission to use the recipe at all. That would cripple the business, Tommy warned. Our customers come for that sauce. They can taste the difference. Exactly, Sarah nodded. And here's something else to consider. I've reviewed the expansion plans Marco presented. He's leveraged the company heavily, borrowed against projected growth from 30 new locations in the next 2 years, all based on cutting costs and streamlining operations. I saw where this was going, so if the sauce suddenly wasn't available, the projections would collapse, she confirmed. Along with the financing, we spent the next few hours developing a strategy. By the time I left Mr. Rossi's office, I knew exactly what I had to do. The boardroom was packed the next morning. Marco had brought in his new executive team, all sharp suits and PowerPoint presentations. Mother sat in her usual place, looking uncertain. I noticed she was wearing the necklace Nonna Maria had given her on her wedding day. Marco started his presentation with typical flair: growth projections, market penetration strategies, cost-cutting measures. The sauce change was presented as a minor operational detail, barely worth mentioning. And with these new efficiencies, he concluded, we project expanding to 50 locations within 5 years. The Romano's brand will become a national powerhouse. The board members looked impressed. Mother was beaming. Marco shot me a smug smile as he sat down. Any questions? The board chairman asked. Just one. I stood slowly, placing Nonna's original recipe book on the table. Has anyone reviewed the licensing agreement for our signature sauce? Marco's smile faltered slightly. That's just a formality. All recipes and processes belong to the corporation. Actually, Mr. Rossi said, entering right on cue, that's not correct. He distributed copies of the licensing agreement to each board member. The sauce recipe is owned by a separate entity controlled by Elena Romano. Its use by Romano's Italian kitchen is subject to specific conditions. The room erupted in confusion. Marco's face turned red as he snatched a copy of the agreement. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. Mother, tell them this can't be right. But Mother was staring at the signature page at Nonna Maria's familiar handwriting. She never said, she whispered. Nonna understood something you've forgotten, Marco, I said, keeping my voice calm. A restaurant isn't just a business. It's a promise to our customers, a connection to our heritage. That sauce isn't just a recipe, it's our grandmother's legacy. The new executives were whispering urgently to each other, reviewing documents on their tablets. I knew what they were realizing, how dependent their plans were on having access to our signature sauce. The licensing agreement is very specific, Mr. Rossi continued. Any change in sauce production methods or ingredients must be approved by the recipe owner. Furthermore, production must be overseen by Elena Romano personally. We'll challenge it, Marco snapped. Corporate owns all intellectual property. You can try, the patent attorney said, joining us. But during a legal process, which could take years, you would lose the right to use the recipe at all. How do you think that would affect your expansion plans? Sarah Chen stepped forward, presenting her analysis of how losing the sauce would impact the company's projections and financing. The numbers weren't pretty. I watched Marco's face as his perfect plan crumbled. The board members were murmuring, shuffling papers, shooting concerned glances at each other. His new executives looked increasingly uncomfortable. There is another option, I said quietly. All eyes turned to me. The restaurants work because we balance tradition and progress. The old and the new. I've spent years modernizing our kitchens, improving efficiency while protecting quality. We can expand, but not by sacrificing what makes us special. I laid out my own plan, measured growth, maintained quality, innovation that enhance rather than replace our traditions. As I spoke, I saw heads nodding, saw the board members remembering why our restaurant succeeded in the first place. And the sauce, Marco demanded, stays exactly as Nonna created it. Made fresh, made right, made with love. That's not negotiable. The board's vote was unanimous. Marco's expansion plan was rejected. His new executives were thanked for their time and dismissed. I was reinstated as COO with expanded responsibilities for maintaining quality across all locations. And my brother? I asked, watching Marco storm out of the room. Will remain as head of marketing, the chairman said, where he can focus on his strengths without overreaching. Mother caught up with me after the meeting, tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Elena. I should have seen what was happening. It's okay, Mom, I hugged her. We all miss Dad. We all want to honor his memory. We just had different ideas about how to do it. That evening, I went back to the original restaurant location. The dinner rush was over, but the kitchen was still warm, filled with the familiar scent of simmering sauce. Tony was there, checking inventory like he'd done thousands of times before. Just like old times, he smiled. "You know, your grandmother told me this would happen someday. Said Marco had your father's ambition, but not his heart. Said you had her spirit, the soul of a true cook." I opened Nonna's recipe book, running my fingers over her handwritten notes. She taught me that a recipe is more than ingredients. "Sai," he grinned. "It's love, it's timing. And knowing when to follow the rules and when to break them." I finished. 6 months have passed since that board meeting. Our restaurants are thriving, expanding thoughtfully into carefully chosen locations. Marco has actually proven to be a better marketing director when he's not trying to run everything. His latest campaign about authentic family recipes made with love is our most successful ever. Mother spends more time in the restaurants now, sharing stories about Nonna Maria with our staff, teaching them that good food is about more than profit margins. Sometimes I catch her in the kitchen, closing her eyes as she smells the sauce, smiling at memories only she can see. Yesterday, a food critic wrote that Romano's manages something rare in the restaurant industry, growing without losing its soul. He called our sauce a taste of tradition in a modern world. Nonna Maria would have liked that review. She always said a good sauce, like a good life, needs the right balance of ingredients. Sweet and sharp, old and new, tradition and innovation, all simmering together to create something special. Last week, I found my old childhood notebook, the one where I carefully recorded Nonna's lessons. On the last page, in her handwriting, was a note I'd never noticed before. "Remember, piccola, the secret ingredient isn't in the sauce. It's in the heart of the cook. Guard it well." I'm teaching my niece how to make the sauce now. Marco's daughter Sofia, just turned 8, perches on the same kind of kitchen stool I once used, scribbling in her own notebook. She has Nonna's eyes, bright and curious, watching everything. "Why do we add the basil last?" she asked yesterday. "Because some things can't be rushed," I told her, stirring the pot slowly. "They need time to develop, to become what they're meant to be." She nodded seriously, writing it down. Another generation learning our family's real secret, that the best recipes aren't just about food. They're about love, tradition, and the courage to protect what matters most. Marco stops by sometimes, watching Sofia learn the family legacy he almost destroyed. I see regret in his eyes, but also understanding. He's learning too, in his own way. The sauce still simmers in our kitchens, still brings people back again and again. But now everyone knows why, not because of secret ingredients or clever marketing, but because every batch is made the way Nonna taught me, with patience, with pride, and with love. That's one recipe that will never change.